What is up, everybody? What is going on? This is VR365. It is Wednesday. It's February 12th, and we're doing it at a special time. It is 1 p.m. Pacific time, and I have a very special guest on my bucket list of VR interviewees. Is, of course, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. Mike, what is going on? How are you doing, man?
I'm great, Anthony. Thank you very much for inviting me on the show. I know it's something that we've both been wanting to do for a long time, right? But it's just a case of our schedules aligning. So now that the stars have aligned, we're finally doing it together. So yeah, I'm great and I'm happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, no, dude, this is an incredible little turn of events because my channel was having some issues about 10 days ago, and here I am now. I'm interviewing you, one of my most wanted guests to interview. And so now I guess Rowdy, we got to get to Rowdy pretty soon. But
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to do it. And in fact, actually, I wanted to ask you about like the whole thing. Like I'm sure you probably covered it maybe in your previous stream, but you got your AdSense all sorted in the end. Like you got the issues resolved.
yeah, I'm trying to forget about that dark history, and so, but it's all amazing. It's like somebody smiled upon me and just opened everything up. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Now there's actual pressure though. And it's unfortunate. We had some technical issues, guys, before we started the show. We were kind of in a panic, and we didn't get a chance to like have a pre-show chat where I would have asked you about making more advanced content, because now that I am monetized, like there's actual incentive to maybe try to do something really cool. So I'm going to try to look towards that in the future. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But anyway,
Yeah, well, it's good.
oh, go ahead.
It's good that you're back. Good that you're back anyway, out of retirement anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
very
sure your
brief.
viewers really appreciate it.
Very brief retirement. Yeah. So I thought what we could do is there's all kinds of questions I could hit you up with and all kinds of different angles. But I thought maybe we could start off with some news to kind of start it off real quick. And it looks like we just got a super chat from Mike M. Thank you so much for that, Mike. Really appreciate it. Okay. And the first story I want to go to is this is kind of a cool little story here, as my computer is operating very slowly. Hold on one second, folks. Yeah, we
This is always happens, as we were saying just before the show aired, we have these technical problems just before we go live on the F Reality podcast every week as well. And, it is a challenge to get a stream up and running. And I think a lot of people don't realize, there's a lot of work behind the scenes, but, technical issues, particularly audio, I think is the worst one. Are always a bit of a nightmare.
You've always had some internet problems, right? Before you moved, like maybe you moved or something. Did you have some internet service problems? Because I've always had internet problems here where I am. I don't have very good upload speeds, so it kind of, when you are trying to do interviews, it's like I should have a much better connection, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a nightmare actually for many years. I live in a town, like right in the center of a town. So you'd think, well, being in a town, you would have pretty good coverage. And my street was literally like this black hole in the center of this map. The whole town was covered with fiber, optic, broadband, and my little street just wasn't. So I had to resort to employing a company to fit a microwave link to my house to microwave to an office building that had fiber connections to get decent internet. And even then it was kind of flaky. But now, thankfully, that's all been resolved and finally got fiber. So I felt like I was one of the last to finally catch up.
Yeah, it's
get on that
amazing
wave.
how important, like whatever particular neighborhood you're in, it's the luck of the draw. You just never know, if they're going to wire it the right way or if you're like delayed and you're going to be waiting years for that. So yeah, it's
Yeah, and it got so bad at one point. I had to actually start a petition with all my neighbors. Like I wrote a little like leaflet and posted it through their door, trying to rally the troops together to try and like get the local council to fix it. But thankfully, we didn't have to take it too far, and the company sort of started rolling in and laying out the fiber optic cable, which was great.
awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, so it's on the board there. Humble VR bundle. And one of the interesting things about this one, Mike, we've seen various bundles before that have had VR games, but I don't know that we've ever seen like an official Humble VR bundle. Like, so isn't this kind of new maybe?
I think there's been one Humble Bundle VR bundle before this, but I do think this is an excellent one, particularly, with the games that are listed in this bundle in particular. I think if you're one of those people that have just picked up a Quest over Christmas, or you've just got a Valve Index because of the Half-Life Alyx hype, and you're waiting for a bunch of games to play, before that title comes out, this is the perfect bundle for that. Like Moss and Superhot are still two of my favorite games to this date. So I think it's an amazing bundle for the price.
Yeah, if you don't have all these games, it's a must grab because budget cuts, budget cuts is in the news actually because budget cuts 2 probably performs a lot better, I think, than the original budget cuts. And they're going to take whatever they learned with budget cuts 2 and they're actually going to like run that with budget cuts 1. So that's going to be updated pretty soon. It might be a lot better. Moss is a standout game. Super. The problem is you probably have 4 of these already. You will get extra keys and you could give them away to, friends and family. So that's always cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, particularly on the Oculus subreddit, which I saw today, were giving away all their additional keys to people on the subreddit. So if you want a game but don't have the extra cash laying around, then maybe lurk around the subreddit and you might be lucky enough to get a key donated to you.
Yeah, absolutely. People are giving out keys. Thanks to Lee VR and Recycled, both with some super chats recently. Okay, so I mean, it's pretty much good news with this, but one other angle though is, do we almost have too many sales in VR? And you would think, how is that possible? How could you have a problem of too many sales? Is it such a thing to have a problem? But if you're a brand new developer that is trying to release a game this week, it seems like every other week there's these major sales. So many of the greatest hits in VR ever are on sale. And doesn't it make it really difficult for all these like smaller developers trying to squeeze their game out at the right time?
I don't think there can ever be enough sales. I'm always up for a bargain. So I'm happy that there's plenty of sales out there. I think the biggest problem with sales is you tend to buy so many games that you just don't end up playing them all. It's like the Steam sales. You buy so many games and they just sit in your library and you never play them. I think that's my biggest problem in terms of sales. But for VR sales, especially over Christmas, if you spent a lot of money over Christmas, I know it was a couple of months away. But saving a bit of cash and buying a bundle of these games is great, I think, in my opinion.
Have you ever tried Viveport? Because I've always felt like that was VR's best kept secret because if you're a new player, god damn, that's a hell of a value. I mean, even if you're paying like that full monthly $10 price or whatever it is a month, there's so many games that you can like work with.
Yeah, and I think I would recommend it if that's your situation. You're brand new to the VR scene, you've just bought yourself a shiny new headset, you don't really know where to start in terms of content. I think Viveport is really underrated for that specific use case. But for the VR veterans out there, that have invested heavily into Steam or Oculus platforms over the years, I don't think it offers that good a value because most of the games are fairly old that we've probably played already.
True, true. Yeah. Although there's always these stragglers that it's like, oh, if I did like maybe you don't want to have Viveport for like a year, but maybe you want to like grab it for a month and hit a couple of games that you somehow they fell through the cracks. Cuz I know I was looking at Viveport and there was like touring carts VR and like Fuji and like all these like little games that somehow slip through the cracks for me where if I grab that for a month or two, I've got a lot of cool different games I could fire up and try. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's pretty good price as well for the amount of content that they offer now. It's like what, $15 a month or something like that?
12.99 maybe something like that. And sometimes if you bought
Yeah.
like a Samsung headset or whatever, you get like 1 year free.
Yeah, I think that's a really reasonable price. But in terms of that model, for the vets, I don't know. I don't think many vets out there are interested in Viveport, but for the newcomers, yeah, without doubt, I would recommend it to them.
Okay, one other small little news story that I saw pop up, this was on Road to VR, is about a company called Tundra Labs. And basically, the story is about these sensors. So they made these little tiny sensors. You can see smaller than a quarter. It's got a little USB-C hookup on one side. The problem is these things need to have power. I guess it would get it from the USB-C, and you got to run the USB-C to it. But it's very small. They're going to be very inexpensive. You could order possibly hundreds of thousands of these if you're a company that wants to do that. But I'm not really interested in this particular topic right here about Tundra Labs, but just more in general. Do you remember the days of 2016? Do you remember like these early VR days with Valve and the Vive? And I thought they taught these courses or had some type of program or classes where people could fly, like companies would send a representative that would fly to Bellevue, Washington, or the Seattle area or whatever, and they would take these courses on how to get licensed for like Steam VR trackers and all that. Like this thing happened at one time, and when it happened, I kept thinking, oh, cool. I'm going to have tennis racket handles that are going to have Steam trackers on them, baseball bat handles. I'm going to have, badminton. I mean, you're going to have little trackers for your keyboards, for cups, dog collars, cat collars. And that never materialized. The only thing we've ever really seen are the Vive trackers, these big, ginormous things. Is that kind of weird? Am I having a fever dream? Is it the Mandela effect?
I think you're onto a winner there. You need to patent that, tracked cup. I think that would be a bestseller. Having a little drink while you're in VR is challenging unless you've got a straw. So yeah, I think you're onto a winner with that idea. You should patent that before anyone else does in the chat. But yeah, I think these cheap, affordable Steam trackers is a genius idea. And yeah, it's a shame that we haven't seen it because I bought one of the official ones recently for a little project, and I think it cost me 120 British pounds. So that would probably equate to like 150, 160 bucks because of, the way we get done over with in terms of pricing with tech. So yeah, I would be all in for a cheaper alternative for sure.
It'd be super awesome though if there was some way they could have a little battery that was inside the thing, right? And maybe it only lasts
Yeah.
for 1 month. And then you would pop it off and you put it on like a little recharging station and a little tiny battery, and it lasts for like 1 month of use. And you could put it on like guns, wheels, what do you call it? Flight sticks, all these sorts of things, right?
I think like the VR chat would go nuts with those, like the
Oh
crowd in
man,
VR
yeah.
chat, they love the concept of being full body tracked, and chatting with their best buddies in VR chat. So I think an affordable tracker solution for full body tracking, I think that would be a really compelling reason to invest in that, especially if they were affordable, like if it was say like $100 for like say six of them, for example, then getting six for the price of one official one is definitely worth the investment, I would say. But I'm not quite sure how much they're selling these ones for.
Yeah, yeah, there is that whole market for VR chat. Like they are insatiable about trying to get their bodies into VR accurately and all of that. That's cool. I'm glad that they're really into that because that does create this other market for that. I'm into the idea of getting our bodies into VR, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But another interesting thing that's kind of related to this, and we're going to be talking about this in just a little bit because we're going to get into next gen VR. What is the most important thing about next gen VR? And here we're talking about getting little tracker devices to put on all kinds of things. But what about these more advanced headsets, which maybe they're kind of a pipe dream? I don't know. But what if we have these headsets, we put them on, and the headsets they learn. They're learning. They're testing the weaknesses in the fences. So the headsets are learning that the headset recognizes a keyboard. The headset recognizes monitors. This is something Facebook is doing with live maps. It's something Qualcomm is doing with some of their next gen stuff. But let's save that thought. We'll get to that a little bit later, but it is interesting that we're going through all this trouble to track things, and we might have a headset that just automatically does it, no trackers required, because it learns your room and it learns objects. Any little quick thing you want to say about that, Mike?
I think it's going to be a while until that happens. Like machine learning, like every time I've seen an example of machine learning or AI, it's always a little bit sketchy, you know. It always gets things a little bit wrong. And you're like, oh, okay. And it's like Alexa, you know, you ask her to do something and she always gets something wrong or doesn't get it quite right, or you get her to turn the lights off and she does something else, or she wakes you up mechanically, you know, laughing in the night or something crazy like that. You just like, so I think we're a way off that. So I think we're going to have to be stuck with trackers for a while longer, but I'm all up for it. I'm happy that this technology will arrive eventually, but it's just a question of time, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, absolutely no question about it because it's like you hear these stories where it's like things are exponentially advancing because all of these technologies are stacking on, you know, and it's like we're going to be like flying in air cars with robot butlers in like 10 years. And then on the other side of the equation, it's like, no, I saw what happened 10 years ago. It's not like I'm living in some future world. Like these things take time, it's slow, it's a slow
Yeah,
process. Okay, so
yeah.
another huge news story. This is really the big story we wanted to cover as far as news, and then we're going to get into more interesting open type topics. But I wanted to talk really quick about Phil Spencer, Xbox VR. We've seen this happen before. We've got some new comments. Now, this was on Gamertag Radio, not our boy GT. It's a different Gamertag. But Phil was on a podcast talking about Xbox One Super X Double X and talking about what that thing is going to do. And the subject of VR did pop up, and he did address it, and he kind of backed off or kind of reshaped his comments a little bit. Here they are. Okay, so this is the first comment. There are a lot of people I know that are working on some good VR titles, great VR titles, and I'm not trying to be not supportive of that. Okay, so that was his first quote. Let me go ahead and grab. We got two more quotes. Philly Spence opened his mouth. Okay, so here he says, "My main point was I wanted to be clear with our customers where our focus was, so that if somebody was waiting for us to bring out a VR HMD for Series X at launch or something, we're not going to do that." Okay, so that's at launch. So that's kind of encouraging. He didn't quite kill it there. And then the third comment that he has, he's talking about VR in general right here. He says, "I don't hope it goes away. I hope it gets bigger. I hope it's something that's so important that it would be a no-brainer for us to go support it." And so, Mike, before I turn to you, one of the things, see, people get up in arms about this because we're VR supporters. We love VR. We want VR to go mainstream yesterday. We want to play Red Dead Redemption. We want to play Grand Theft Auto without all the little problems that might come with it, with mods and stuff. We want mainstream VR. We don't understand why is Xbox being this like curmudgeon that is not following the program here. But the one thing I'll say about this, Mike, think about Sony. They've got 100 million people around the world that probably have PlayStation 4 by now. 100 million. There's 5 million PlayStation VRs. That's 5%. Is an accessory with 5% penetration a success? Like that would be the first time in history. If we're going to say PlayStation VR is a success, it's got 5% penetration. That would be the first time in history you'd look at 5% penetration as success. What do you think about this whole Xbox VR thing and like that whole idea there?
So I think it's just a huge oversight on Microsoft's behalf. You know, they seem so fixated on like 4K, and that's like, you know, what the Series X or Model X XX is going to be pushing. You know, it's all about 4K resolution, and 4K, yeah, it looks incredible. But really, what's next after that? You know, what comes next after 4K? Are we going to be jumping to 8K or 12K? You know, I don't think so, because when you get past 8 like 4K, you go past the point of diminishing returns in terms of how much better it can actually look on a panel, right? I don't think it can get much better. So VR is the next obvious step, you know. Being fully immersed in a game or experience is what we've been dreaming about for years. And this is why we wanted 1080p, 60 frames per second. This is why we want 4K, because we want to be more immersed. Well, if you want to be more immersed, just jump into VR. You can't get much more immersed in the gaming or immersive tech sphere right now than with VR. So I think it is a huge oversight for them. But I do understand their position to a certain degree because I think they've had their hands burnt a little bit with the Microsoft mixed reality platform. I don't think it did them any favors
But
really. I don't think it particularly sold very
yeah,
well.
but wait,
Um,
on the Windows mixed reality platform though, if their take is, hey, we've tried it and we weren't successful. We had these really low price headsets, all kinds of different manufacturers. We tried it. They tried it, but you know what? Where's Forza Horizon VR? Where's the
yeah,
short little Halo experience? Like, they could have their own store. Microsoft loves walled gardens like the next guy. They're envious of walled gardens, of Apple's walled garden and Facebook's walled garden. Microsoft loves their own walled garden, but they Master Chief, what was it, Recruit or whatever? They didn't give no
yeah.
reason for anybody to get excited about any of their headsets.
No, that's very true. And I think, like I said, I think it's an oversight on their behalf. And with Sony, Valve, and Oculus kind of paving the way, moving forward, they're going to be the established brands. When VR does gain more traction and gets more popular, because people already know that they've have history in making quality products and delivering decent VR experiences. Well, Microsoft might be a bit too late in the game when it finally pops off, and he's saying, well, we're going to wait for it to happen. Well, by that point, it might be too late. Although I do think that the Series X will be capable of VR, built into it. They must have some sort of redundancy built into it that it will be capable of doing something like that. It's just a question of whether they turn it on or invest heavily into it. But with some amazing IPs that they have, like Forza, Halo, Gears of War. I'd love to see a Gears of War in VR. Like, that would sell me on investing in their platform almost overnight if they announced
Dude,
it.
Halo
But
Master Chief Collection. I want to go back just into regular, just walking down the hallway and the doors, just being in that Halo world, dude. That would be super awesome.
yeah, and Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. I know they've been getting a lot of kickback from the community asking for VR support with that game. Um, so I don't know. I do think it's a real shame. I would love them to throw their hat into the ring, but I just get this feeling that if they don't like invest in it now, they may be left in the dust in the future.
Yeah, because I mean they're already in, like, even if they were to start right now, they're so far behind where Sony is from the standpoint that Sony has this back catalog. And
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know,
and that's
man.
the thing. These companies, they're making very little money on VR right now. Oculus, Valve, and Sony, they can't be making that much money on VR because they invested so much into developing their hardware, creating a platform. It doesn't come cheap. But what they're doing is they're investing into the future. They can see the dream, they can see the vision like we can. Our eyes are open to it. We know that VR has all this amazing potential. It's just a question of, when it gets unlocked and when other people open their eyes to it as well. And I think, with Microsoft taking this kind of stance on it, I think they're just going to do their own legs in the long term.
Yeah, okay. Wanted to thank some super chatters real quick. James M with a super chat, Jan Red with a super chat, Jason Olson saying, Mike, thanks for making your videos. You're the reason I got into VR. Thank you both for all your dedication to VR. Thanks so much, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, no, do you think Microsoft might have some secret projects that maybe are underway? Like, could they be working, like, maybe they've decided, oh, we're going to have VR in 2024, and so maybe behind the scenes they've got everything planned, and but they just don't want to mention anything about it at all, right? Or do you think they're just seriously like not doing nothing, just chilling, we're not tripping on VR at all?
I'd be really disappointed if they weren't doing anything. I would really like to see another generation of mixed reality headsets. I think the only reason that sort of kept them behind a little bit was because the controllers sucked so bad. For me, that was the killer for that system was the controllers because, they burnt through batteries like, the brightest torch that you can buy from eBay, and you were replacing them every 5 minutes. But the concept of inside out tracking, they were the first. It's just the execution was poor. If they can iterate on that design and get the hardware partners on board again, like Asus, Lenovo, Samsung,
Well, hey,
then
Bug-O Vision. Bug-O Vision's going to be Windows Mixed Reality 2.0, right?
I don't believe that Bug-O-Vision business. The Firefly or whatever you want to call that new Samsung headset. I think there was a lot of buzz going around. It was maybe a slow news week for everyone because everyone started talking about that thing like it was going to happen. But I think it was just like a patent from like a year ago that got revived. So for me, I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm kind of skeptical at this
Hey, have
point.
you ever seen these videos? There's been some videos on YouTube from like Microsoft research something something, but it's not under Xbox, it's not under Windows Mixed Reality, but it's like Microsoft research, and they have this guy with like a VR headset that has like all these extra freaking cameras attached and a backpack, and he's like going through a giant hotel, and it's like reskinning the environment. Like they're studying some stuff. Like Microsoft is not giving up on this field. There's no way in hell. They missed out on the smartphone revolution. They're not missing out on this next revolution, I don't think.
And that you made a really valid point there about the phone thing because their phones were terrible. Those Windows phones were terrible phones. They could never compete with Apple. And I think again, it's because they waited so long. They waited to see what the hype was. They waited to see what people wanted, and then they made a product. And I think we could see this happen again with VR.
Okay. So anyway, those are some news topics I thought we could cover real quick. Some interesting things. I mean, the Microsoft question is always going to be, it's kind of, we need to have the bad guy, right? They are the bad guy right now in the VR world. They're kind of like the evil Microsoft empire that doesn't want to play ball with everybody else. So that's cool.
Yeah.
We'll wait for them. They'll eventually come
They
around, right?
They will get my money though for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The second that gets VR support, they've got my money there because that game looks absolutely incredible. And I know you're going to need to, sell a kidney or something to get a machine that's going to be powerful enough to play it. But I think, your eyeballs are going to thank you for it, and your mind's just going to be absolutely blown because that game. I'm not even into flight simulators, and I'm hyped for that game. So fingers crossed it gets VR support shortly after
Yeah,
launch.
Skiva007 in chat says their business cloud solutions, Azure, makes so much money that VR is peanuts. Everything is peanuts. There's a lot of Microsoft. I used to have some Microsoft stock back in the day, and like I would be in these different stock trading forums, right? Like message boards, and people would be like, "Get rid of the gaming already! It's freaking dragging down our stock. Like our stock would be so much better without this crappy game." Like they've always wanted Microsoft to just get rid of gaming altogether. Nathan says Microsoft was about to reveal some stuff at Mobile World Congress, but got canceled. What do you mean? Like Mobile World Congress has been canceled, the whole thing, or
Mm,
they just decide, or
yeah.
or the Microsoft reveal has been canceled?
No, the whole event has been cancelled because of the coronavirus.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
When did this news drop? Was this today?
I think it was today. Yeah, they were worried because they needed the local government to declare it like an emergency, like a national emergency. Otherwise, they wouldn't get their money back on the insurance on the amount of money they invested into the event. But I think that has actually happened now, as far as I'm aware. So Mobile World Congress has been cancelled, and I think someone else was talking about the possibility that GDC, even though it's still over a month away, might be cancelled as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the coronavirus outbreak. God damn, this thing is causing real problems, folks. I mean, look, safety above everything else, right? I mean, safety above everything else. Because honestly, going to a convention is the worst possible scenario when there's something like this happening, because it's literally a nightmare idea of having all these people from all around the world flying into one place, an incubator where everybody's touching everything. Like you get food, people are handling your food. We've all seen the movies where like the little things are floating in the air, the monkey has the virus. It's scary, man. No, I mean, it's funny, but it's not really funny. What about PAX East? You've been to PAX East
Yeah.
one time, right? Is that still on?
Yeah. I don't know about other events. That was the only one I was kind of keeping track on because I didn't plan to go to PAX anyway this year. Um, So yeah, I think it's a shame. It is a shame.
Damn, because I want to go to GDC. I actually got accepted again to go to GDC as press, and I really want to go because I'm hoping they'd have like Iron Man VR demo. Maybe Alex might be there. No, I don't know, but Oculus would have some. Oculus is gonna. Well, it was in the news that Oculus was gonna have some different topics at GDC. So I guess GDC has not been canceled yet. Damn, coronavirus strikes again. Okay, well,
Yeah. In terms of events, though, there's not really that much I'm planning to do this year other than sort of Gamescom, which is in Cologne in August, I believe, and then likely Oculus Connect again. But other than that, I don't think there's much going on in terms of like PAX or E3 that I feel that I need to invest the money to be there. I feel like I can consume it all from the sidelines.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, these days you don't necessarily. Although, imagine if you lived in California or something like that, because you know how you like went and visited. Who was the developer? In Dreams, right? You checked out Phantom Covert Ops, and
Yeah.
there's developers like that in the UK. The UK actually has a strong development community, so that's good. But if you were like in the Bay Area, there might be like that many more. I don't know. Bay Area is so expensive. Developers are like moving to Austin and other places.
Yeah, like I think if I lived stateside, then I would go to these events. But I think the investment in flying over the Atlantic to get there and staying in a hotel for a week, and then the jet lag and recalibration, but trying to recover when I get back is always another week on top of that. So yeah, I think Gamescom and OC are probably the ones I'm going to focus on the most this year.
All right, yeah, I will be at OC, so I'll probably see. I mean, I hope to be there, so I probably end up seeing you there. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's go ahead and get into one of the biggest topics that I wanted to get into today, and this is something I want to get into with all my upcoming VR guests because I think it's a very interesting topic. The
hmm
topic is next generation VR, but before we get to that, the question I got to ask you, Mike, is do we need next generation VR or are we at a baseline level? Are we at a decent enough a level? You think about the Rift S, you think about the Valve Index, you think about Oculus Quest, PlayStation VR definitely kind of hurting a little bit, but are we at a decent enough level right now where the hardware is not the problem, or do we need new breakthrough hardware to try to take VR to like a new stage of popularity, possibly?
Okay, so I'll start this off by saying like I love new headsets. Like getting a new headset in the office is great. It's like the highlight of being able to do what I do is trying out new headsets. I love it. I've always been one of those people that's like an early adopter. I used to be that guy that was in line for the latest iPhone on launch day. I was there at the local game store at midnight, getting the new console. So, you know, unwrapping new tech and finding out all about it and testing it out is like totally my jam. However, uh, I don't think we need new headsets right now, which, it pains me to say because I love that experience. Um, Content, by far, in my opinion, is the single most important factor right now. The reason why you go out and buy a Nintendo Switch is for like Mario or Zelda. The reason why you go and buy an Xbox is for Forza or Halo. So what we need for all these like VR platforms is really compelling content to get people to buy a headset and then keep coming back to that content again and again and again. Like games like Beat Saber have held us over for quite a while, and they've done an admirable job at that. And I think it was great for them to be bought up by Facebook. I think it was a smart move for them. But we need more. We need more content.
Okay, but wait,
And I think,
one sec. So somebody might tell you, wait a minute, Mike, you're talking about content, but what's happened in the last, say, 100 days? Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Espire 1, Budget Cuts 2, Stormland, Boneworks, Asgard's Wrath, Pistol Whip, the list go Until You Fall, Westworld Awakening. I mean, all these incredible bangers that we've gotten over the last 5, 6 months or whatever. Dude, the content's there, right? Or no?
but so I would say it's great that we've got that content, but I would say most of that content will just appeal to those that are already invested in VR already. What we need is content that appeals to the greater gaming public. So I think
Okay,
Saints and
okay,
Sinners did a
wait.
cracking.
So you need something to go mainstream, right, to the greater gaming public. What kind of games are you talking about, like GTA and stuff like that? Because my argument is we're never going to get that stuff until we have something so compelling that someone puts it on their head and they're like, "Fuck, I didn't know this was possible." See, I don't. I could take my quest somewhere and I could put it on someone's head and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, this is really cool." And then 3 hours later they might be talking about the 49, they're not, it wasn't a life-changing experience. Like they didn't put it on and
Yeah.
been like, "Oh shit, I'm going to the nearest bank and I'm withdrawing money." And,
I think the difference is like, we talk about Asgard's Wrath, right? Amazing game. But if you walked into your local game store and said, "Hey guys, I was playing Asgard's Wrath last night. Oh my God, their game was awesome." No one's going to take any bit of notice of you because they don't know what the frig you're talking about. And that is the problem. When you say, "I'm playing The Walking Dead in VR," people are like, "Holy crap, there's like a Walking Dead game in VR now." And they're like, that game did really well across YouTube and through its marketing because it was a name that everyone recognized. And this is why I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Half-Life Alyx, the gaming industry as a whole, because people like Half-Life is legendary, in people's minds, and they've got this like great nostalgia of playing it as a kid or, recently, in fact, if they've only just played it. So a game like that in VR, it's going to be really interesting to see how that affects what's going on right now. But it's that correlation between, oh, I've played this game normally, and now someone's actually playing it in VR and they're actually in the game. Holy crap, that's amazing. And we need more content like that to convince those people to convert, I think.
Okay, here's an interesting question I have for you, Mike, because you're, see, that's the thing. VR, okay, let me explain it this way. VR has an infatuation with going mainstream. We really do. Like, we're kind of like, we don't feel worthy or something. And it's like we're looking for acceptance from the world out there. And it's like we want Giant Bomb to be talking nothing but VR. And until that day happens, VR really hasn't been mainstream, right? But the thing is like, what do you think is really going to get us there? So you have Half-Life Alyx. Do we have enough that's coming on the way? Because at the end of the F Reality podcast, I think your guys' most recent podcast, you were actually talking about this subject, and Nathan was saying like, yeah, but these games wouldn't make any dent in the real, he's talking about the big games, and you guys were kind of all talking about that. Like VR has this problem. We don't have these really big games. We don't have the Red Dead Redemptions, but I don't think they're coming anytime soon. So can you personally live with the possibility of VR being a relative niche for another 5 years? Or if something doesn't turn the corner in like another year or so, you're out of here and you're back to flat game land.
No. And let's be clear, Half-Life Alyx is the first flagship title that Valve is releasing. They're working on others. I think they said they're working on three in total. So there's some light there. Oculus, without doubt, are investing heavily still in developers. But we're yet to see what else they've got lined up for this year. We know Medal of Honor is coming, but not much else beyond that. But in terms of going mainstream, like personally, I don't care. Like I'm happy with VR being a niche for the next 5 years. If that's the case, I'm still going to be here doing my thing and like loving it and enjoying every minute of it. For me, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It doesn't make a big difference. I understand, like we want VR to be successful. Mainstream would be great. If everyone had a headset, everyone was playing games, and you had this thriving community and developers making lots of money for all the hard work that they're putting into the games because they are really working their socks off and sometimes not getting the return that they deserve. Then yeah, that would be great. But like, I'm not going to turn my nose on the VR industry if that doesn't happen. Basically, is the answer there. Yeah.
It's February 12th. When are we going to get the date for this baby? Because this thing, dude, how close is this? I mean, it might be less than 30 days from now. We might be playing this ourselves, and we could be so lost in this world and just be so elated, and who knows what we'll be thinking about VR after we play this.
Yeah, exactly. Although, I did pin a lot of my hopes on Boneworks, which I know a lot of people out there really enjoyed, but for me, it was a bit of a disappointment. And I thought what they did with the physics of the game was pretty incredible, and the weapon handling was incredible. The story was just like completely lost on me, and the ending for me, I won't spoil anything for those who haven't finished it, but it was a real anticlimactic ending. Um,
Yeah.
so although like I'm super hyped for Alex, but I'm trying to kind of like measure it a little bit because I don't want to disappoint myself. I'm sure they've done an amazing job, but I think we've all kind of, you know, been a victim of, overhyping something and then being disappointing, So Defector is another great example of that. I was really excited about that game, ultimately end up letting me down. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you, and yeah, it's incredible. It's going to be so interesting. I mean, whatever happens, it's an interesting thing. But let's talk briefly, though. Let's pretend the world does need next gen VR. I think it actually does. Like, I don't think we're at the baseline yet. And so I've been thinking about next gen VR, and one of the things that I think about is like, what is the single most important feature that next gen VR can offer? And so, what I've listed here, we've got 11 different variables that could be absolutely key to the future of VR gaming going forward, maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, or maybe very soon, right? So, resolution, field of view, comfort slash weight, eye tracking with dynamic foveated rendering all together there, wireless, full body tracking, next gen AR pass through, built in 5G modem, facial tracking, advanced avatars like those next gen Facebook avatars, varifocal lenses, and the wild card, play space reskinning, understanding. True sentient understanding. No. So these are the different options here, Mike. And honestly, we want them all, right? We want all of these things, or we want 7 of them. But what if you could only have one of them? What if you had to min max this thing? What if you were the head of some major corporation that is planning a next gen VR headset that you want this headset, you bring it over to a party, you put it on someone's head and they're like, like they are really blown away. They're not like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." They're like really blown away. Which one do you roll with?
okay, this is going to probably disappoint a lot of people out there. For me personally, the number one thing is comfort.
No,
It
that's
is comfort,
okay.
without doubt. And this is my justification for that answer. You could have the widest field of view, the highest resolution, the highest refresh rate headset in the world, but if you can't wear that thing for longer than 20 minutes because it's front heavy, or the lenses rest on your nose, or it gives you a headache, then it's basically worthless, you know. And when we talk about, mainstream, although I don't think it's like super important, one of the couple of the big things that would help that tipping point and make it more accessible and more mainstream would be that people are able to wear it for hours and hours on end. They're able to play the games for hours and hours on end. They're able to do their everyday productivity, answer emails, watch their favorite show on Netflix for hours and hours and hours on end. And it's super simple for them to get into it. And they can just put it on their faces and they're in it. And then when they're in it, it's very easy and intuitive to use and navigate. They're the main reasons, or the main things that we need, I think, in next gen headsets. I think people get bogged down and too focused on, these super high end, lofty goals when we need to strip it down to basics. Like, if you can't wear this thing, then whatever you've got in that headset is worthless, basically, in my opinion. Um, the Quest, I think, it's done amazing things for the VR industry, and I think it's an amazing headset. But let's be honest about it, it's not the most comfortable headset. But I think for those newcomers out there that maybe haven't tried anything else, they've got nothing to compare it to, so they don't know, the magic of having like a light PC-based headset, for example, that's really comfortable to wear for hours on end. So for me, I think moving forward, comfort is the biggest factor. And after that would be accessibility and ease of use.
Wait.
But for me
One quick
personally,
second though about your comfort, because were explaining the comfort situation, you were talking about being in the headset all day, being able to use it all day long. I think that's a two-pronged deal, though. I think it's comfort, but one factor I didn't put on here is like ridiculously high refresh rates, like 400 hertz, 500, like some crazy because isn't like real life like the equivalent of like 700 hertz or something crazy like that? Like our real life experience would be like the equivalent of 700 hertz. So one of the things I've argued about with these VR headsets is I don't want to put on a VR headset and play some retro gaming experience where I'm in a 1990s room and I'm playing Sonic the Hedgehog and there's freaking toaster strudel right there and there's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and I got some Capri Suns. They take you back to the 90s, right? But I don't want to do that because I feel like when I'm wearing a headset, I'm paying a price. Because if I play a VR game for like an hour, hour and a half or whatever, when I'm coming out of it, it's not like I'm just sitting on a sofa playing something and I just turned it off and I'm done. I'm coming out of it and I'm kind of like, I'm kind of coming out of a dark movie theater room back into sunlight. And so comfort, yeah, is huge, but I don't know if it's going to be like the refresh rate or what it would be that would like completely eliminate the eye strain too.
Yeah, so it's a good point. If that helps the comfort and being able to wear the headset for longer, then yeah, I agree that would definitely help. Um, but yeah, like for me, it's just a question of which one can I wear the longest and the most, and that's why I really love the Valve Index. For me, it's like the most comfortable headset that I use personally, followed by the Rift S. And I've actually used the Vive Deluxe audio strap with the Rift S because I don't like that halo design, and I haven't quite got to that point because I couldn't. The deluxe audio straps like sold out everywhere before I managed to get a second one for my Quest, which I'm really annoyed about because I bought the 3D printed plastic brackets from Etsy. There's a seller on there that does an amazing job. So I'm disappointed that I missed that boat because I don't think they're going to make any more now. So hopefully, Oculus make a deluxe audio strap or something similar themselves to alleviate that problem with the Quest because it is a big problem in my eyes.
I have the Frankenquest and I can only wear it for 35 minutes. It's so fun. Yeah,
Really?
because it's right here. It's straight. For some reason, it actually makes my forehead hurt even more than regular style. I don't, because if I
Yeah.
have it loose, it's kind of too loose. And if I tighten it, it ends up tightening this. So what I need to do is I need like a VR cover that is super paddy up on the top, and then maybe it'll be perfect at that point. Another thing I was going to tell you, if you really do want a deluxe audio strap, check out Amazon, the US version of Amazon, and figure out some way to get that crap to England because it shows up every once in a while.
Yeah, I will. I will. It's annoying because I think we over here they were about 120 pounds as well, so they were quite pricey, which worked out about 160 bucks on 150 bucks. So it's a lot of money, but for someone that's using it as regularly as I am, and it's part of my job, I guess. So investing in that is worthwhile for me in the long term. But for now, I've got like a VR cover at the front and a VR cover at the back, which does help a lot, but it's still by no means perfect.
Isn't it funny that our quests are all of a sudden turning into like these $700 headsets with all these add-ons that we're
Yeah.
adding? Real quick, did want to thank some super chatters. Apologies if I miss you guys because I am trying to concentrate on a conversation here. But I super appreciate these super chats at the same time. Mad Wookie with a $2 super chat. Thanks so much. Steve Drumheller of Conquer Reality with a $10 super chat. He's saying VR365, F Reality, Gamertag VR, Rendered Reality, Eric for President, Paradise Decay, Cass and Cherry, Virtual Strangers, and MRTV should work together to conquer the world. I agree. I absolutely agree. And, we met up at OC6, a lot of us. And
Yeah.
Skiva with a $2 donation, Ragdoll Coon, $2 donation. And I think maybe we're caught up now. Okay. So the bonus question, Mike, actually, wait, what did you say was like the second thing? So let's pretend the comfort weight was just completely solved. Our headsets are 200 grams, comfortable as hell. What would the next thing be?
Resolution. Yeah, resolution. Having tried high resolution headsets, it is nice.
Which
Of
ones?
course, the caveat.
Which ones have you tried?
Um, so I've so I've tried the Pimax, for example. the 5K plus. I had that here. And, when you get that resolution, it's nice. Unfortunately, that headset was just, it kind of brings me back to my earlier point is that I couldn't wear that headset for any longer than 20 minutes because I have a really low IPD. It's around sort of like 5960. And because the Pimax lenses are so large, when you dial the IPD setting all the way down, the actual lenses sat on the bridge of my nose. So it was so uncomfortable to wear. I couldn't wear it any longer than 20 minutes. And I did actually give them a ton of feedback behind the scenes, and they've even sent me prototypes since then to test if if it does the same thing, if the lenses sit on the bridge of my nose because they want to try and fix it. Um, so I know what these like high-end headsets can look like, and with the Valve Index, it's a high resolution panel, slightly wider field of view, and it is really, really nice. And then when you do go back to the Quest, for example, it does suck a little bit. When you're used to these real high-end visuals, it's kind of a bit painful to go back to the Quest. Obviously, Quest owners, they don't care. They're having a whale of a time. They don't know any better. That's the difference. But once you've been exposed to that, you've seen the light, it's sometimes hard to go back. But then maybe after 5 to 10 minutes, it all drifts away and you're just immersed into the game and you have a great time again.
I've been playing my Quest very recently, actually. I've been playing Face Your Fears 2, and I dealt with the freaking spiders, and let me tell you, it
Man,
scared Dude, I have a spider thing. And not only do I have a
yeah,
spider thing, I have a spider thing for a very specific spider, Black Widows. And there were like
yeah.
giant ones that were, and jumping around. Oh my God, dude, I was screaming like a girl. Um,
Yeah, I can totally relate to hating spiders because I freaking hate spiders. And funny story, actually, like a couple of years back, my wife like randomly just woke me up in the night and she was like, "Hey, Mike." I was like, "What's up?" She was like, "Don't freak out. I just threw a spider at your face." And I'm like, what the frig? Like, why would you do something like that? She was like, "I have no idea. I felt a spider on my face. I just grabbed it and I just threw it at you, and it must have landed near you. And I've never jumped out of bed so fast in my life, and it was huge as well." But yeah, I hate spiders. I detest them. And I've got this great story where Zim, we were both at OC5, when the quest just got announced. Like we just finally found out the name, and he was like, "Dude, you need to come and check out Face Your Fears 2. They've got a demo of it on the show floor." And the demo was that shed where you open the door and it's full of spiders. Holy crap! Like, if you want to hear a grown man scream like a girl, then that's the video you want to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I've been playing that, and I'm really like much love to Turtle Rock Studios, right? Yeah,
yeah.
much love to. I thought they did a great job with that game. Now I'm playing the. It's almost like a poltergeist version. Like there's this, like it's basically like they created this world, this little area, and then there's two different stories that are happening on that little area. Pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is, like a lot of people were disappointed in that model because they changed it up, obviously, from the first one with just having these like set fear experiences. I actually preferred the second one. I thought it was a really cool little story experience. Kind of reminded me of Resident Evil a little bit. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I would be more than happy for them to make more of that series rather than, Journey of the Gods, for
oh,
example.
I love Journey of the Gods though, but
You
yeah, I
did?
really did. I really like that game. But so I'm playing Face Your Fears 2. I was playing a little bit of Vacation Simulator on the Quest, which I'm amazed they got that thing running just beautifully butter smooth. It worked really nice. And I was playing some of the Climb on the Quest actually earlier today, doing some different. Where you're like in the Grand Canyon, and you're climbing up. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? But anyway, I have a
Yeah.
question about this. The reason I bring it up is I actually have a question right here, and this is an interesting topic, and you probably have to deal with this with your audience. And I have to deal with this in certain ways with my audience, but it's this idea of balancing between two different worlds. On one hand, you got your PC VR snobs, all right? Your uppity PC VR snobs. They want everything to be like super high end, high resolution. And then on the other hand, you got Sally Walmart, the Quest owner, that is perfectly happy with the Quest. And I'm happy with the Quest, man. I'm playing Vacation Simulator. I'm playing the Climb. I'm playing Face Your Fears 2. Yes, I know it's watered down, but there's no wires, and I'm enjoying myself. I was playing in my other like living room area. I still like the Quest, but there definitely are these PC VR snobs that kind of want the Quest to just die already. Do you have to deal with these two different parties?
Um, I think like I'm aware that I have to cater to both of these audiences. That's what I would say. I have to strike a balance between, sharing PC VR content and Quest content because both are very important. And PC VR content is what my channel was born on. So I need to look after those people as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act for me. And if I go for long periods of time just covering Quest. I feel a bit guilty that I haven't sort of, catered for the PCVR market to a certain degree and vice versa as well. So yeah, it's always a bit of a balancing act for me in terms of getting the balance right in terms of covering everything fairly, and giving. And the one thing that I do think that I don't cover enough is PSVR content, and it's something that I'm aware of because it does have a big audience. But for me, particularly right now, the content doesn't seem to be there. The last big game was
Tell
Blood
me
and
about
Truth.
it.
Um, and don't get me wrong, like I love that game. It was actually my favorite game of the whole of last year in VR, like Blood and Truth. It was so amazing. So if you haven't played it on PSVR, I'd highly recommend it. It's a standout experience. But I'm very much looking forward to Iron Man. I'm going to be playing that on PSVR, and I'm also looking forward to Eric Kahi's new game, Paper Beasts, which is coming soon on PSVR as well, because he was actually the creator of Another World, which was one of my favorite games growing up as a kid. So I'm really looking forward to that game. So yeah, I would say it's a bit of a balancing act for me because I cover all sort of VR headsets and content.
Yeah, wait.
So it's just a case of getting it right.
You brought up PlayStation VR, and I wanted to. I got some weird message in OBS. I'm sorry. You brought up PlayStation VR, and I thought that's actually a great thing to talk about really quick here. I'm going to try switching to where we're going to have the web, and then I should have mic and have your voice and everything. And so go ahead and say so.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we got you. Okay, so
Okay,
this
cool.
is the PlayStation VR catalog of what has released recently. These are like the most recent releases on PlayStation VR, right? And Mike, straight up, dude, Sony has forsaken the PlayStation VR fans. Look at this, man. So, just going through here, I mean, this is like old add on content and stuff, right? The last new game that we actually have here is like Shadow Legend VR, Eclipse Edge of Light, and, you keep scrolling down, and eventually these are like Audica DLCs, but I know, Audica not too long ago came out, but it's just, let's see, I'm trying to go through these pages here. Okay, so Mini Motor Racing X came out not super long ago. Touring Carts, Fuji, but dude, where's the bangers? And Sony, like, people will say, well, hey, PlayStation 5, they're getting ready for PlayStation 5. What do you expect? They're going to keep coming out with a steady stream of games? And I'm like, yeah, because PlayStation VR is its own private little ecosystem. It's its own little world. How can you just like stop bringing games out?
Yeah, I think I understand it from both arguments, though. I like my personal hope is that it's just because they're working on next gen content, and for that I don't mind so much because I'll be happy for that. Because I think out of all the headsets, probably PSVR is probably the one that's due the refresh, right? Because if you think about what Sony did with those Move controllers, they were out what 2 or 3 years before the PSVR came out with the iToy, and they were doing some kind of crazy stuff with them then. And back then, because the iToy wasn't particularly successful, you could buy those controllers, those Move controllers, dirt cheap. Whereas now you have to like really hunt for them because they're pricey controllers now.
Yeah,
Um,
Sony, they are in a bizarre spot right here with PlayStation VR 2. And what I want to do, I want to have like a special episode where I try to get maybe a couple of like PlayStation VR, like that's all they do, right? Maybe somebody from like some of these different shows and just talk about this crazy
yeah.
scenario that Sony is in because they're pissing somebody off. It doesn't matter what they do, they're going to piss somebody off because either they're going to piss people off because it's not technically advanced enough, or they're going to piss people off by not being backwards compatible enough, because how do they make this transition to PlayStation VR 2? It's going to be a different tracking. It's got to be completely different
Yeah.
tracking, right? It's not going to use no colored lights or nothing like that. So like the aim controller isn't going to work with this new thing that they eventually come out with.
Mm.
But then the game that they create, won't they want that game? Like, let's say they make Farpoint 2. Impulse Gear's been working on it for 3 years, banging hard on PlayStation 5 technology with PSVR 2 in mind. But now they got to take this with 360-degree tracking, real legit motion controllers that have thumbsticks. Now they got to take this Farpoint 2 experience and they got to try to water it down so that it'll squeeze on a base level vanilla PlayStation 4 and also the PlayStation 4 Pro. Like, dude, it's kind of a nightmare for these developers that are going to have to dance between all these different platforms.
So I think in my mind, the way I kind of look at it is that the PS5 will come. PS2 will eventually arrive. I don't think it'll be anywhere around launch. But they've already said that the original PSVR will be backwards compatible, right? So they've already said that. So I think whatever new hardware comes out, you'll be able to play that whatever game they're launching on that hardware on the old PSVR as well. It's just that you're going to have to deal with the sacrifice of the limited tracking volume and the controllers. But if you want to upgrade, then you can get the better tracking headset and the better controllers. And I think that's going to be the way they play it, because not all games that they release will cater to that better headset or the better tracking or the better controllers. They could release Moss 2, for example, and that will be an amazing game regardless of whether it's going to be on the next gen or the current gen headset. So
But
I
okay.
think they'll do it in a smart way because, like Sony are incredibly savvy when it comes to this kind of thing, and they would understand that they would be alienating some of their long-time supporters, and I don't think they'll do that in any way. So I think they'll do it in a very smart way that is fair for everyone. I get
I
that
mean,
feeling
yeah,
anyway.
I no, exactly. They're going to do exactly what you're saying. But my argument is, doesn't that corrupt the vision of like Impulse Gear? They've in the back of their mind, they got to know this still has to run on PlayStation 4, a base level one.
Uh, it's just a bit like Half-Life Alyx. You know that game's going to be best played on the Valve Index with the Valve Index controllers, but you can play it on the Quest with a link cable. You're still going to have the same game experience. It's just that you're just getting that little bit extra with the Valve Index. That's the difference. Ultimately, the same experience, slightly better. That's all.
When do you think
That's the way I look at it.
when do you think we're going to find out more about like do you think Sony's going to even mention VR right away, or it's going to be all PlayStation 5 stuff mostly, or do you think we'll get some PlayStation VR news?
I would love for them to hint at it, at least just to say, look, this is what our glimpse of the future is like. We can't announce anything concrete yet, but we're working on VR. We're committed to VR in the future. I'd love them just to say that. I think that would put everyone's minds at rest and keep everyone at ease, because they're an important player in the VR industry. They're one of the biggest. So we need them in the future. So yeah, just to get that little hint from them that it's at the forefront of their mind, I would think that would keep most people happy, even if they don't unveil
Yeah,
anything.
do you think so this Christmas, right? They're going to be selling PlayStation 5, right? And it's going to be like $500 or whatever it costs. And I
Yeah.
imagine they would want some of us VR guys to kind of want that. So if they're going to want to get us to buy it, they have to make a couple of games that actually take advantage of PlayStation 5's power. Do you believe we're going to and you would imagine the game would work just, I mean, it's going to work on regular PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro, but it'd obviously be way more enhanced on PlayStation 5. But same tracking, same headset, we're stuck with that. But are we going to get those?
This is the
Go
thing
ahead.
that I don't think they will release it on the PS4 and PS4 Pro. So, like, say we talked about this recently on the podcast, F328 podcast, where you know Sony, if they're going to bring out the big guns for VR next generation, a game like Resident Evil 8 would be the perfect game, to launch their new system, because Resident Evil 7, we all loved that game, but we didn't get to play it on any other system apart from PlayStation VR, which was something that I was personally really gutted about because I was waiting for the PC VR release. But I think that they'll just launch the game on PS5. You can play it with the old PSVR or the new PSVR. but it won't be on PS4 or PS4 Pro. And there'll be like a technical reason as to why, because like the graphics will be so advanced, or the lighting, or the whatever. There'll be a reason for it. So you'll be able to use the old PSVR with it, but it'll be on the new system.
Okay, if
You
that's
know,
true, like if they do that, I would actually really enjoy that, because then, yeah,
yeah,
exactly, they would have to push it really hard and say, no, we couldn't do this on the old one. It's like, yeah, obviously. But yeah,
yeah,
no, that would,
yeah. It's like anything, like, and we're so used to it as gamers, like Nintendo do it as well, with the Switch, for example, like, oh, this isn't going to be on Wii U anymore, it's going to be on Switch from here on out, and they kind of they need to phase out their old consoles, and Sony will do the same, and VR is a good opportunity for them to do that in a way,
it's going to
you
be
know?
super cool though, and interesting to see how they navigate this from a political standpoint, almost, like an acceptance of the community and all of that, because they're
Yeah.
stepping on somebody's toes.
And if you think about it, the exciting thing is, like in 18 months' time, we could be, experiencing a PSVR that is dominating the industry. It could be as easy as that. It could tie it c- the tides could turn very easily. Although Oculus are doing very well with the Quest, Sony is such a well-established gaming brand that they could just completely dominate in the next couple of years. So it's so exciting to see what's going to happen next. And I think regardless of what happens, competition in the space is what we need right now. Oculus and Sony and Valve all fighting out is great, but we need more people on board on the edges as well, like Google, maybe Apple, maybe. They need to get involved as well. Microsoft, please.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time talking about games. But when we first thought about VR headsets, it was more than just games, right? And I want to take you back to, you said you were an early adopter for a lot of things, Mike. And I don't know if you were an early adopter for this, but a number of years ago, there was something called 3D TVs. And I unfortunately was an early adopter of the whole 3D TV thing. And I had a PlayStation 3, and I had the play, I was playing MotorStorm, whatever it was, MotorStorm Pacific Rift in 3D on my PlayStation 3s, blah, blah, whatever. And there was like FIFA World Cup, and some of the games were in 3D, and you would go to like a Best Buy or a TV store, right? And it was all about 3D TVs, 3D TVs. But the point I'm making here is that there were like games in 3D. But another thing that they were doing is they were saying, no, TV shows are going to be in 3D. Music videos are going to be in 3D. You could get movies in 3D. They had the movies like Avatar and Monsters vs. Aliens or whatever. They had these different 3D movies that were available right then. And so there was the idea of all this video content. And that's where I want to go with this next little topic that I wanted to get into it with you, Mike, is where is the advanced video? Where is the video dream for VR? And right now on the screen, what I'm showing on the screen here, this was Intel. This was at the Consumer Electronics Show back in 2018. And this is when they were talking voxels, voxels, voxels. And basically what it was all about was volumetric video. This idea where they'd have all these cameras. Like if they went to an NFL stadium, they'd basically have like 80 cameras that are surrounding the field from all angles, 360-degree cameras, and then using computers and neural networks and blockchain, they take that information and they basically create what is essentially like video pixels that can be analyzed from any possible angle. And so if you're in VR, imagine watching your favorite sporting event in VR, but not the crappy Next VR stuff. I mean, I guess I shouldn't disparage Next VR and say it's crappy, but I feel like our resolution isn't there, the bandwidth isn't there, like none of it is available right now. But I want this future, Mike, because isn't this going to get... There's a lot of people that don't play video games. How are you going to get Uncle Bob? Uncle Bob has never played a video game in his life. But you know what? He loves the Oakland Raiders. And if he could stand on the field right behind the quarterback and be standing right next to the running back and see everything happen, all around them, and it's like good resolution and stuff. So where is this technology, Mike? Because this was back at CES 2018. I mean, I know a lot of companies are working on this, light fields and stuff. Do you feel like this is brewing in the background and there could be a revolution that we don't even know about that might just completely change the game for VR from a video standpoint?
Yeah, so let me just go back to 3D TVs just quick because I was an early adopter. I did buy a 3D TV. Avatar was the reason why you bought a 3D TV, right? That film in 3D was mind blowing,
Hey,
and
wait,
it
did you
sold me
did you
on.
have a Samsung 3D plasma?
No, I had a
Oh, okay.
Panasonic, I
Oh,
think.
Panasonic.
Yeah, I
Those
had
were
a.
the really high end ones.
Yeah, they were the ones with the proper legit glasses that were also really expensive. But yeah, I paid the money, watched Avatar like a couple of times, and I was like, yep, okay, there's nothing else to watch now. There's like it in 3D, and I think 3D TVs have a lot of responsibility, I think, for this whole like gimmicky thing because like so many people were sold on the hype of that technology. And I think when VR rolled in, everyone was just like, this is just another 3D TV bullshit, that we're going to get sold on, that we're not going to be using in like 4 or 5 months' time. So I do think it has a lot to answer for 3D TVs and the way that they were marketed. However, things have changed since then. I don't think anyone really buys 3D TVs anymore, and I don't even think people generally watch 3D content in the cinema. I certainly don't. I'd rather go and see a 2D movie than a 3D movie at the cinema. It's just the way I prefer to watch the movie. But in terms of like movie content or video content in VR, I without doubt know that people are heavily investing in it. Um, and I do think it will happen, but again, just like everything else, it's a question of when, not if. If you think about it, in terms of like gaming in VR, we're like in the Nintendo Entertainment System era of past, and in terms of video content in VR, we're probably in the black and white TV era of past. That's where we're at right now. It's just we're slowly gaining traction, but the wheels need to keep turning, and we need to keep improving and evolving. And I think the biggest issue right now is getting this content in that resolution streamed somewhere. Like that is just so difficult with the current infrastructure that we have for internet. Like we discussed at the beginning of the show, we're struggling just to stream a 720p or a 1080p live stream onto YouTube right now. It's a challenge, and just imagine if you're trying to deal with that on the magnitude of like times 20 times 30 like with like 6K to 8K resolution VR lifetime video feeds. It's so difficult, such a technical challenge that a lot of the technology that we have right now, we're hitting that barrier in terms of what's actually possible. And Oculus, they try to live stream Oculus Connect, for example, in VR, so users can watch it in VR using venues, or they're live streaming concerts and stuff like that. And I think when it works, the technology is great, but I do think that it needs a lot more work. So I do think it's the future. Like, particularly I think for people that aren't able to go to these things. If you're disabled, for example, you're bedbound, or you're too old, or you're too young, to go to these events because it's dangerous, or you're frail or weak. Having this opportunity to experience it in a way in VR is magical, and I think that will really open up the doors to people in the future and sell everyone on the idea of you can enjoy this content from home and feel like you're there. And I do think it will happen, but like I said, it's just a question of when, not if.
Okay, check this out though. Like this little demo here, this was super cool what Intel did, and then we haven't heard anything about it. But they have a special sound stage like facility that they made to film stuff, and this was one of the first tests that they did, where it's basically like filming the scene of a movie, but having it in a pixel form where you could go anywhere, you could stand anywhere. So like imagine a future where you're watching like Marvel's Avengers and stuff, but when you're watching the movie, like a battle is taking place in downtown Manhattan, and you're physically in the movie standing on street level, and you're watching like all this stuff happen all around you because you're like in the movie to a degree. I mean, you're passive, you can't do anything, but you're just looking at it. But because they can take that movie and make it into individual little like video pixels, you could have any angle from, any possibility. Now what you're talking about though, what you basically said there is, how is this going to get to us? The bandwidth, that's the problem, right? But one of those points that I had on there for next gen VR, one of the options is a built-in 5G modem. I don't know if you heard about this, Mike, but it was in the news not too long ago. Amazon has like Amazon Web Services, AWS, and they announced that they're working on something that's going to be related to VR and AR. Now, this is Jeff Bezos. He's not playing around, guys. Jeff Bezos is doing some things out there. But they were talking about less single-digit milliseconds in the delay. Single-digit milliseconds. So maybe 7 years from now, every headset we buy, maybe Quest 3, has a 5G modem built in it, and that information is just being, maybe we go to edge computing, Stadia, and then you don't need a Snapdragon. You don't have the heat. You have a battery, but you don't need all that other stuff, right?
Yeah, I do think that will be the future. Whether it will be, in the next 10 years, I don't know, because, I do admire what Google are doing with Stadia. I know that Nvidia are working on their own gaming streaming platform as well. And streaming content at 1080p at 60 frames per second is, potentially millions of users all at once is like a very difficult task. It's a very difficult thing to do. So I admire them to be able to do that. And I know a lot of people talk about 5G and VR, and I am very skeptical of it because see companies that are selling 5G, they've almost latched onto VR as this is the use case. This is the reason why you want it to be faster, because of VR. You need it to be. And I kind of feel like they're kind of using VR as a kind of like an excuse to do it. Like everyone wants faster internet, of course, but they're almost selling it as a concept, and I don't quite buy it yet. And it's because like so, for example, like even in my office here, the distance is 2 meters, using like TP-Cast or something like that with a very small link, I couldn't get that to work, 100% smoothly. There would be some latency there. And latency is so important when it comes to VR that I am just very skeptical that a server across the other side of the world will be capable of delivering a smooth experience to my headset wirelessly soon. I
Yeah,
think
I
maybe
know,
one
I know.
day, and I say one day as in like it could be long before I'm past that it
But
happens.
look, this
But I just
guy,
don't think.
he's got a Rift headset on. And no, actually, this is a true demo, though, where Intel, they did film
Okay.
a certain NFL game. And like, he's showing you that's what I'm looking at. That's where my headset is. I'm on the field. I'm looking at
Yeah.
this. And they kind of have this like widescreen thing. And I don't know like what the resolution of all this is. And I don't know how many
Yeah.
gigs are transferring per second. But I'm telling you, man, like we're sleeping on this aspect of VR. And I think you mentioned that a lot of these 5G companies are jumping on this VR AR thing because they're like, this is the way we sell it, guys. Here's how we do it. But maybe
Yeah.
they've seen some demos, like maybe they've seen some private demos of some of this volumetric video that might be 5 years away, but it's coming. And when it's coming, it is going to kill. I mean, I'm hoping, right?
Yeah. Like I think that's the ultimate dream for everyone, right? That you buy a cheap headset, that's just got the display and the optics and the lenses in the headset, and a really powerful router in there that you can connect to a cloud server that can beam all this amazing content to your eyeballs. That is the dream. A lightweight headset because you take all the processing power out. All you need is a battery as well to keep it wireless. That is the dream. But yeah, I'm out of all the technologies, 5G and cloud edge-based computing is one of the things that I'm probably most skeptical about. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it's all exciting, right? It's really cool. I mean, I just think the
Oh
video
yeah,
stuff
like
is like, it's like this like
yeah,
secret that is out there that eventually,
yeah.
Um,
But like also like from another perspective to give you a bit of insight into like like last year for example I was part of like the YouTube VR 180 Creator Lab. So this is like a process. You have to apply for it. You have to do like an interview. You have to pitch your ideas for like 4 videos to create in VR 180 format, right? And I was successful, got a place at the London Creator Lab, and it was an amazing experience. I was there for 3 days, met loads of creators from around the world. And Google were investing in this format because they want to, people to use it. They want to see vloggers use this as their next platform, their next medium of choice. And and it's just very difficult. I love the medium. For me, it was a great fit for my channel because I had a VR audience anyway, majority of which probably had VR headsets so they could watch the content in. But like going back to the data, like when you're capturing like 5K per eye and then rendering that and editing it, like the file sizes were like in like 30, 40 gigabytes for like a 10-minute video, that's how bad it was. And that was just me downloading it from a camera and editing it and just processing it. Whereas if you think about streaming it, and that's why, I think it's a very big technical challenge that we're probably a long way off. Just having been involved in that kind of process a little bit myself, that's why I'm kind of skeptical about it.
Yeah, yeah, but it's exciting nonetheless. Um,
Oh yeah, for sure, for
Absolutely.
sure. Like we all want to live like the Ready Player One dream, right? Where they're just super thin glasses. That's what we want. That's what we dream of
Well,
course.
I'm just thinking like grandmas, like just people that don't play games at all. But we want
Mm.
everybody to be addicted to VR because then the headsets get better and better and cheaper and all these kinds of things. But I have Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice running on the screen right now, and I threw that on there because one of the questions I had for you, Mike, is excuse me, one of the questions that I had is I know that you still play flat games on occasion. Like you'll talk about them on F Reality every once in a while, and I find that interesting from not like because oh my god he's cheating with the flat game community, not like that, but from the standpoint, I know you've got a limited amount of time to work with. You're a YouTuber, you're banging away at this stuff, you've got a family and everything else, so I know free time is limited, yet you still take some of this precious free time and siphon it off for some flat game experiences. So there's got to be something compelling about these flat games that still bring you to them. And I'm wondering, like, what is it? Like, what is so like? Because I tried Horizon Zero Dawn after I got into the whole VR thing. I got VR crazy. Didn't play no flat. Then Horizon Zero Dawn came out for PlayStation 4 and it was like in 4K and all this stuff. And I had a PlayStation 4 Pro, rented it, was really into it for like 2 hours. And then after a while, it just felt wrong because it's like, I'm looking at this tiny little window. No, I want to be in that world.
Yeah. Yeah, like I love games generally, whether it be on mobile, whether it be on Switch, on PC, VR, whatever. I love games and I've always loved games. Growing up as a kid, gaming was my jam, it was my rock. I moved around a lot as a kid, because my dad was in the military, so we moved every 3 years, and gaming was the only thing that was like the stable thing in my life. So, I've loved games ever since I can remember. And you're right that I don't have that much free time. But flat games are kind of like a guilty pleasure for me. I do enjoy them. I like playing the latest games, like Resident Evil 2. The remake was like one of my favorite flat games of last year. I absolutely adored that game. Played through it twice. But I made sacrifices in terms of my sleep to be able to do that. And I loved it. I also enjoyed the latest Call of Duty game. I thought it was fantastic. Jedi Fallen Order, another standout, amazing game that I completed from start to finish. And I have plenty of games that I do still want to play lined up that I haven't touched yet, like Borderlands 3 and Control, for example. Both great games that I hear are fantastic that I just haven't had the opportunity to play yet. Um, but it's just one of those things. The thing is with VR is that it some games just don't have that level of depth or story or interaction in them. They don't have that. Like a lot of games do. Like for example, like the big games we have, like Asgard's Wrath, Stormland. They have these amazing stories and characters that you really want to get involved with, but a lot of VR games don't. And sometimes I miss that. Being really sucked in and immersed in a story or a game is great. Regardless of whether it's on a screen or in the headset. Um, I'm really looking forward to Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is like a 2D platformer, which maybe probably wouldn't work so well in VR, but I enjoy it nevertheless, So, you know, I try and keep my foot involved in everything, gaming wise, because I'm just a passionate gamer. And like even at night, at the moment, for example, like, say I've been playing around in VR stuff all day, recording content or testing content out for planning future videos. When I go to bed at night, I sit there and I fire up the Switch and I'll play, Into the Breach or like Slay the Spire, which I absolutely adore at the moment. And I just play them until I'm so tired I fall asleep, and that's kind of like my daily routine, So regardless of what it is and what medium it's in, whether it could be on mobile as well. I was really into Clash of Clans for a long time. I just love gaming full stop, So I try and enjoy as much of it as I possibly can, whether that be in VR or any other medium for that matter. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, there's so much good stuff if you limit yourself to VR. I
Yeah.
just, for me, it's a time thing, and then also it's kind of like if I went to play a flat game, I would be like, wait a minute, don't I need to be covering something? Don't I need to write a review about something, or whatever? So it's like you feel this obligation a little bit too, but
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why maybe I enjoy it because I don't feel that obligation. I don't feel compelled to stream that content, even though I've thought about it in the past, streaming flat content to like my Facebook gaming page or something like that. But in the end, I just think, you know what? I just want to keep this to myself. It's my guilty pleasure. I share a lot online anyway. So this is kind of the thing that I just enjoy for me.
yeah. Hey, can I ask you a YouTube related question? Since we're kind of
Sure.
on that subject a little bit, is like, so I know there's a lot of up and coming VR related channels, a lot of different people trying to do VR gaming videos of one variety or another, right? And so we're all trying to do our thing and we'd love to, blow up and become these successful YouTubers. And you look at your channel, it's blown up to the point where you like hit 100,000 subs, and that was like a huge freaking deal, right? And then you hit like 200,000 subs, and that's really incredible. But the question I have related to all of that is like, it seems like it's climbing Mount Everest, to get up there. And then you get up to Mount Everest, but now you've got to like maintain it, because you're only as good as like whatever the last video you did. So it's like you've reached this plateau, but now you've got to like stay there. Does it ever feel daunting to you? Do you ever feel like, man, can I just get somewhere and then just like relax and take a month off and go on a nice long vacation? Or do you feel like there's a pressure to maintain where you're at and continue to move forward?
So for me, I've never felt like I made it. I never felt like I made it. I still feel as confused and bewildered and that kind of imposter syndrome that I did from the very first day I started doing it. And that's even more evident when I go to events and I meet people. That really freaks me out sometimes because, for me, it's just something that I would be doing anyway. As a hobby, playing all these VR games anyway. I just happen to film it and then share it online. But there's always some new challenge or new video or new milestone that I want to kind of work for. I never feel like I'm content with what I'm doing. And you're right, you're only really ever as good as your last video. And last year there was a real sort of strange time for me that I hadn't felt before since like leaving my full-time job and doing YouTube as a job. And that was when I was doing that VR 180 project, which I just mentioned earlier. It was an amazing opportunity to do that with YouTube. But they had these deadlines where you had to produce these videos for the certain time, and it was paid promotion, so you wanted to, stick to the deadlines, because there was a risk that you wouldn't get paid otherwise. And there was a lot of pressure there, because not only did I have to create my usual content for my audience, but also create this additional content that was very technically challenging, also very time consuming, and that I'd never done before. So, you're learning as you're going. And I felt a lot of pressure doing that. And I think when that project was over, and also you got to remember around that time was when the Quest launched and Rift S launched as well, with all that hype going around that sort of time as well. So it was an important time for the channel. And yeah, I felt a lot of pressure then, and it became difficult for me to a certain degree. And I promised myself after that project was complete that I would kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit. So like over Christmas, for example, I spent way more time with my family. I didn't, work so much over Christmas, and even since Christmas, in fact, I've slowed things down a bit, just for my own personal well-being because I hated that pressure feeling. Whereas now I feel way better about it. I feel way more comfortable. I'm under no pressure from anyone, so I feel liberated in that. If I want to make a video about something, I make it because I want to do it, not because someone else wants me to do something. So in that sense, I feel this kind of sense of freedom right now, which I'm very happy with.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty amazing but the fact that you feel like you haven't made it yet, that's probably why you've made it to where you have. You got to have that hunger, right? But on a side question related to this is like one of the things that we've seen with gaming journalists and like people doing podcasts and stuff like that is every once in a while like one of these people get hired away by an actual developer. A developer hires them to be like a community manager or an assistant producer or something like that. And I was curious for you, is there a dream job that is in the VR world, maybe, where somebody could come to you and be like, hey, Mike, we got this opportunity for you? Is there some kind of job where you'd be like, you know what, I might actually leave YouTube to go do something like that? Or is YouTube pretty much where you want to be and you want to stick with this long term?
So something that not many people know is that when I left my full-time job, many people know I've told this sort of story before that I used to be a police officer in a former life. I left that job, and at that actual time, I was offered a position to work with big screen. Not many people know this story. And I'd been working with them behind the scenes on a few bits and pieces, and I'd flown out and met the team and Darshan, the guy who runs big screen, great guy, and we got on like super well, and I got offered this job opportunity, and I thought, okay, this is my opportunity now. I'm heavily embedded in the gaming community now, and I think my channel was like 12,000 subscribers, and then a point came where I had to make this difficult decision, and the difficult decision was, do I continue working for Big Screen, who I think had this amazing vision, like who wouldn't want to be involved in like a company that wants to be the cinema of the future, and like being a big movie geek, that was an amazing opportunity. Or on the other hand, I double down and go for YouTube full time, making VR content. And it was this really difficult decision. And in the end, I felt that YouTube was the right choice for me. And looking back now in hindsight, I do think I feel like I made the right decision. But it's just one of those things, that was happening around that time that not many people know about. And still to this day, I'm very friendly with the big screen team and Darshan. And in fact, when I was in the US last time and I visited San Francisco, he lives there, and we actually went out for pizza and grabbed a beer and just, got to hang out for a bit, which was really nice because he's a really nice guy. So I really admire those guys, but I do feel like I made the right decision with YouTube. And I feel like now I'm invested now so much that I want to continue doing what I'm doing until it's just not fun anymore. Like the moment where it stops becoming fun, then that'll be the moment I stop. But I can't see that happening anytime soon. And then maybe after that point, I would then try something else, or maybe even go back to the police. Who knows? But yeah, I think regardless of what anyone offered right now, I'd just be happy where I am. So even if someone said to me, do you want to come and work for this company or do this, I'd be like, I'm good where I am, thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now.
I did want to thank Gamertag VR, super chat from Gamertag VR. Thank you so much, GT. Really appreciate that. But one of the things, oh man, damn it, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I have a dream job, and I'm just curious if this might also be a dream job for you. Here's my VR dream job. Okay, so when Jason Rubin was like head of Oculus, like content basically, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I would want to be his assistant, all right, where I fly around to this developer, that developer. I'm trying Red Matter, I'm trying this, I'm trying Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, and reporting back to Jason Rubin like, okay, this game needs work, invest in these people. That's the dream that I want. What if that job was offered to you where you could see all this stuff. See, the problem is like if you get hired by one single company to be an assistant producer and you're working on Westworld Awakening 2, which would be incredible, and I'd love to be an assistant producer working on that. But if you were doing that, That's like 3 years of your life, just one very specific game. That's what you're doing every single day. And for me, it's like I'd want to be involved in all this VR goodness, you know?
Yeah, like, having vi recently visited like End Dreams, for example, and you get that peek behind the red curtain and you see the amount of work and effort that goes on behind the scenes with like, artists, game developers, music, animation, everything when it all comes together, it is magical. And for me, I just think, right now I've got like a really unique opportunity where I can do something that I'm really passionate about and I love doing, but I also have the benefit of being at home, so I can be, the husband to my wife, I can be, a friend to like my people around me, and that's really important to me to keep that sort of work-life balance there a little bit. And for us, like as a family, we're getting a dog, in like 3 weeks' time, which, is like the most exciting thing that's happening in my household right now because, we had a dog 2 years ago. He passed away. He was old and sick, bless him. And we're finally at the time in our lives where we can get a new dog, like a puppy. And having this opportunity to work from home and do what I do, which I'm, eternally grateful for, gives me the opportunity to do stuff like that and really sort of like, spend time with my family.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
is, yeah, the family, the family is
Yeah.
important.
And whereas I feel like, as much fun as like working for a game studio would be, it would be set hours or, I'd have to travel maybe a lot, and that would make things difficult. Like it was before, like when I was working in the police, I worked night shifts, I worked unusual hours, I sacrificed weekends and Christmases because I was working, Christmas Day, for example, being kicked in the face in Christmas Day is a vivid Christmas that I'll never forget, and you just think, I don't have to do that anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, being able to work from home, that is it. Like I was unemployed for a while and like I wasn't making any money or anything, but I was like living the dream of doing a daily show and working on the web on my VR Game Rankings website and stuff. And it's fun to be in that. Although you have to remember I'm at home but I got to work, And so you got to get into that mind
Yeah.
space, but yeah.
Yeah, like for me, I separate it. So like this office, this is where I work, whereas this is in the loft of the house. So I live in the basement of the house, and that's like where I get to relax. So I do get to separate it to a certain degree. Um, so for example, like my Switch and other gaming stuff is downstairs. So I separate it in that sense.
Yeah, mentally,
Yeah.
when you're going up there, that's work time. Yeah.
Work time. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You got to be disciplined to do that, I think. But so far it's been fine.
Kevin in chat says Anthony wants to be Jason Rubin's bitch. No, now Mike Verdu. I want to be Mike Verdu's bitch. So you can go ahead and tell Mike
Yeah.
that if you want. But
It's,
thanks to Paul Bellino on a super chat. Thank you so much, Paul. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say we haven't really heard much from Mike Verdu, which is a bit disappointing, really. Jason Rubin, I think, was a really great ambassador for Oculus, and really sharing what he was doing, what he was investing in, what he was excited about. Whereas I haven't seen that from Mike, and of a shame, really. I didn't get that feeling from him either when he was on stage. He said that he was a passionate gamer, but I just didn't feel that connection with him. So hopefully he does prove us all wrong. I'm sure he is working hard behind the scenes, but hopefully we get a glimpse of what they've been investing in over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that will be curious is Oculus still really committed to the whole PC VR thing, because it's like a lot of the games are going more towards Quest where it's like it's the cross compatibility, right? Are we going to get more Lone Echo 2s that aren't going to be on Quest? Probably not, but
Mm.
I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays itself out. Go ahead.
Yeah, like so like ha having visited like End Dreams, for example, I think they're doing it the right way. They're making Phantom, which is an Oculus exclusive title, but it's going to be releasing on Quest and Rift at the same time. But the Rift version is like enhanced. You're playing it on a PC because graphically it looks incredible, like in the Rift. And you go to the Quest version, and of course it plays exactly the same. Like the games are identical in every other way, other than the way it looks. And you do, like I mentioned earlier, with the Quest, when I go from a high-end PC headset to the Quest, it's that first couple of minutes, I'm like, oh, it's a bit different, doesn't look as nice, but then that quickly fades away and you're in the game and you're just immersed in the game and you enjoy it. But they're doing the right thing in that they're making two versions of this game, one for PC, one for Quest. And I feel like a lot of developers could use that as a good example, not just porting over the Quest version to PC, which no one really wants. No one on PC wants to play a Quest version of a game where they've invested heavily in a high-end PC and a high-end PC VR headset. No one wants
Yeah, I
that.
mean, if the game is enhanced enough where it gets that boost and it's got that clarity and you can super sample the crap out of it, then it's okay. Like I thought, like Journey of the Gods, like I played a little bit of that on Rift, and I thought it was. I mean, it's like the art style is more simplistic and stuff, but I thought they
Yeah.
did a decent job of upgrading it. But yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue that we're going to be dealing with going forward for a long time. So I have so many different questions, and I know we're running out of time here because we probably got to get to sleep pretty soon. It's late for you over there. But one quick question I did want to try to get into while I still had you here is one of the questions I have is are you surprised that we haven't seen a game in VR that has tried to like use a sentient character that like communicates back and forth with you? Because when I got into VR, I thought this was going to be almost like a commonplace kind of thing where developers would use a lot of different tricks where like the person in VR, like they throw you something and you catch it, or they say, "Hey, look," that they would do like these little tricks. And now I know that it would be essentially tricks. It wouldn't be like a real AI. We're not there yet. But I still thought maybe they would do some clever things because of like knowing where your head is looking, like saying stuff like, "Hey, are you going to look at me or not?" So like you feel like you're interacting with this more intelligent virtual character. We haven't really seen that yet. Do you think it's just something that's very hard to do? I thought they did it just a tiny bit in Call of the Starseed, like just for a very brief second.
Yeah. I think Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and I think we're not quite there yet. Some games have kind of like faked it a little bit to make it feel like that. Lone Echo, I think, is a great example of that. The interaction you have with Olivia Rhodes, like the captain there, is amazing. You really do feel like a connection with her because it feels like she's looking directly into your eyes almost to a certain degree at points, and then she does look away, and it's in that those mannerisms that make it feel more lifelike and real. Blood and Truth is another one where you you did feel like you were part of it because like there was a scene where you're in a car and you're looking across and the driver's talking to you, or you're in the basement and they're planning the next move, and you're embroiled in this kind of like action adventure movie almost. And like Asgard's Wrath, you're like fist bumping or high fiving your like animal companions. So those games kind of like do it to a certain degree, but like not like what you're saying. That would be really cool. So someone saying, "Hey, look over here. Let me throw this to you," or something like that. Like that would be really neat, and I think it's something that developers could take advantage of more for sure because it makes you feel more connected with the world around you. Um, so yeah, I totally agree. But for me, Asgard's Wrath, again, like that having a companion in VR works really well. And Falcon Age is another great example of that, where you've got this kind of like, this bird that you're looking after and nurturing, and you're on this, you get the sense of that you're on this adventure with them together. It's a joint effort. You need them and they need you. And I think more games could take advantage of that, having whether it be an animal or like Telltale's Walking Dead, for example. That series was amazing. You were a grown man but you were looking after this vulnerable young girl, Clementine, in this awful situation, and you felt this overwhelming responsibility to look after her. And that dynamic works really well in VR because you're even more emotionally invested because you're actually in it with them. So I think that is definitely something that developers could monopolize on more in the future, and I'd definitely love to see more of that in the future for
Yeah,
sure.
one of the nice things is with Facebook being this company that has championed VR, they're also spending ridiculous sums of money on AI. and they've got some really talented AI people that are working for them for all different aspects of their business. And hopefully, maybe some of that AI, see, Facebook, though, I mean, Oculus, like, I don't know that they have their own built-in studios yet, right? Because they had like Oculus Story Studios, but then that was like the arm that made like Henry and Lost and all that stuff, and they're kind of like they're like a third party now. They're like a separate company, and they do have like Oculus Strike Team that made what do you call it, Dead and Buried 2.
Dead and
Yeah,
buried. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it would be interesting to see if maybe they would start acquiring some companies and some developers and start building more of this like library of developers that are under their own umbrella. We saw Sony, of course, purchase Insomniac. It was like 230 million or whatever that was. Do you think
yeah.
that's something that might happen with Oculus?
Definitely. I think we're going to see more of this in the future. What they've done with Beat Saber, I feel like they're going to do that more, invest in buying up these studios that they really see the full, potential in long term, and it's a shame what happened with Insomniac because I think that really, you know, I don't think they finished Stormland. I thought it was a good game. I didn't think it was great though. I think it fell short of its true potential because they had this whole end game plan for that game that they couldn't deliver on. And I think, them being acquired by Sony really put the nail in the coffin in that. I do think it's a good game, but it could have been an amazing game, but it's not, sadly. And they're never going to work on that game again. And we're never going to see another Stormland on Oculus again, which is a real shame because the world that they created was amazing.
Although, you know what?
But yeah,
I kind of believe that there's a slight possibility because, see, here's the thing: when Sony bought them, if there is any contract that was already signed the day before Sony bought them, that contract has to be fulfilled still. It's kind of like Electronic Arts bought Respawn, right? But Respawn already had the deal with Oculus for Medal of Honor.
yeah.
I'm what
The difference is like when does it change from being your passion project to a project that you have to finish?
True.
That's the big difference. And I could tell, like I was fortunate enough to have early access to the game and I finished it to completion and the end game state and I was just like I don't understand why it's in this unfinished state. So I actually was on a call with the lead developer like from Insomniac about it. And I asked him some quite frank questions, and you could see almost to a certain degree that his heart was broken because he couldn't finish
Wow.
their true vision for the game,
Yeah.
and I felt bad because it wasn't the game that I wanted it to be either. It just fell just short of its true potential. So that's the difficulty with that game. But I think Insomniac are amazing developers. They made Spider-Man, which is an incredible experience. A flat game on PlayStation. And they're good VR developers as well. So hopefully, they'll get more opportunity to make some VR content on PlayStation in the future, and hopefully on their next gen console.
Yeah, it's possible, honestly, that they might have made that contingent on the purchase, that they could continue to still work on VR stuff. Because a lot of these developers are similar ages to us. They've seen everything happen in VR, in regular gaming over the years, and it's kind of boring a little bit in regular gaming. And VR is this new excitement. I mean, you saw what Valve said. They have 80 people that are working on Half-Life Alyx, and these people are jazzed. Some of them are probably more excited than they've been in like 25 years because they're working on this new thing, this undiscovered territory that hasn't been mined to death yet. And there's so much potential with VR, with a new VR game.
Absolutely, and having witnessed it firsthand, visiting In Dreams again, to give them credit and as an example, they're all absolutely buzzing because they get to innovate, and it's very rare in gaming that you get to truly innovate and pioneer something new and unique, and that's exactly what they're doing. And I think that every VR developer feels that way, and they're all contributing to this, amazing medium. And some people get it right, some people get it wrong, but regardless of whether they get it right or wrong, they're teaching those lessons for future developers to learn from and set an example, for the future. So, anyone that's developing stuff in VR right now, I admire them, 100%. But they're all very passionate and very excited people, for sure.
Yeah, and going back to the Oculus thing about them making investments in developers, God, right now would be a really good time for them to grab a lot of little small developers that are scrappy. You know what I mean? Like say
Yeah,
Master Indie, the developer of Jet Island. Like little tiny developer, or like Downpour Interactive, developers of Onward. Like these
yeah.
smaller companies, they're still small, but some of these companies can keep growing. You look at a company like Servios, they could be one of the next major companies because they're making an investment in VR. You look at some of the stuff they've done with like Westworld Awakening, I thought was incredible. I don't know if you played that, Mike, but if you haven't, you've got to play Chapter 2 of Westworld. Have you ever seen the TV show, the HBO TV show? Because, oh my God, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched the first series and I did play maybe 5 minutes of it. I thought the graphics looked great, but I didn't play it any further. So I should go back to it really.
Chapter 1, terrible. Chapter 1 is terrible. If all I play, like I could play 20 minutes of Chapter 1 and be like, Westworld Awakening, this is garbage. Like I wasn't entertained or impressed at all. Then I got to Chapter 2 and I was like, oh my God, these fools killed it. I think it's one of the 5 best games that came out last year, and not even a
Wow.
question in my mind, man. It's really
Wow.
incredible.
And this is why I love, being involved in talk shows like this and our own podcast is seeing that excitement in someone's face when they recommend a game. You're like, okay, I'm gonna have to put this on the list now. I'm gonna have to go and check it out. It's always amazing to see another passionate, person about, the industry and a game that they really love and they want to share it with everyone else. It's great to see.
You like stories too, dude. You are gonna be so blown away by. I shouldn't like overdo it too much, but oh man, I thought it was
Yeah,
incredible. But Mike, thanks so
cool.
much. It's been awesome. I mean, this is a pretty long show, so you probably got to get going. But I definitely want to thank you. I mean, taking the time out because you are a busy guy. This is like evening hours. These are hours where you could be kicking it with the wife or playing a flat game for the love of God. But I
No,
appreciate it.
I know. No, thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to do it as well. And like I said at the beginning, it is something that we've both wanted to do for a long time. And it's just nice because for me, it's a bit of a change because I'm the one normally asking the questions, so it's nice to be on the other end of that. And this is the first time I've ever done like an interview as such, live streamed. So it's a new experience for me as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on it and get involved.
Yeah, no, it's fun to do an interview where someone else is doing it. You just show up and answer questions. It's
Yeah,
relaxing
it's
and
nice.
enjoyable. Yeah,
I should do more of these.
it's awesome. And I like it too from my standpoint because like when you're talking about something, I can try to grab a video or something. So it gives me, cuz like I'm doing these shows where I'm just talking and I'm trying to grab videos and talk. I need a producer is what I really need. But
Yeah, well, keep doing what you're doing. That's the most important thing. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't take any more breaks. Just and try and enjoy it as much as you
yeah.
can. Is the best advice I would give you. Just try and enjoy it. And if you don't want to stream every day, don't stream every day. Just do it when you want to do it. And most importantly, enjoy it. Because if you're not enjoying it, then why are we doing this? That's what I
Yeah,
would
no,
say.
I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun. And you know what? I got a lot of more questions. I didn't get to them. So we'll definitely have you back on again. Maybe,
Absolutely.
maybe post Alex. I'll give you some time, but maybe in
Yeah,
April or something, I could hit you up and see what you thought about Alex and everything else that's going on.
that'd be great.
Okay, guys. Well, that's basically going to go ahead and do it for this episode of VR365 Live. Just as far as show notes go, I will be back on Twitch this Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So check me out over there on Twitch. Tape delayed on YouTube later. So if you want to see it live, make sure to bounce over to Twitch. And then, of course, next Thursday, back on YouTube like normal. Basically, I'm only doing 2 days a week right now, Mike. I'm doing Thursdays and Sundays and working on the website, and then also a full-time job that I don't really like very much, but it does pay the bills. But thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Take it easy. Later.
Bye.